you dream of sharing your message on stages, but are still terrified you'll mess it up? Want to crush your online videos so that you can grow your business, but you feel super awkward and hate the sound of your voice? Or maybe you simply want to feel more confident in the boardroom without reading your notes and fumbling over your words? Hello, new friend, and welcome to the Speaking and Storytelling Podcast, a show for Christ-led entrepreneurs and leaders who want to make a humongous impact in the world. I'm so glad you're here. I'm your host, Emanuela, a stage actress and playwright turned speaking coach and story consultant. Whether you want to master speaking on stages, online, in the boardroom, or the classroom, if you believe you're meant to make an impact in the world and you know your voice and story is the ticket to get you there, then this podcast is for you, my friend. Over the past 4 years, I've helped dozens of entrepreneurs find and tell their stories, speak with authority, and captivate their audience so that they can grow their visibility, further their God-given mission, and change the world. If you're ready to do that too, then sit back, grab a pen and paper, and enjoy the show. Hello, welcome back to the Speaking and Storytelling Podcast, my friend. This is episode number 7. I'm feeling very spicy, very sassy, very excited today because we are episode 7. 7 is a great number and I'm feeling rolling. I'm feeling like this podcast is grooving, moving and grooving. So thank you for being with me today. Today we are talking about concise storytelling. This is storytelling 101 for Christ-led entrepreneurs and leaders who want to use their voice and their story to make a humongous impact in the world. If that is you, you are in the right place. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive right in. One of the things so many people say to me when they enter my world is, I want to be able to tell my story in a way that is simple, that is clear, and that is concise. What happens with so many of us is that we tend to overshare. We have all lived lives. And if you are of the age of me, maybe over 40, you've lived a lot of life. And that's awesome. But not every detail of your life, of your career journey, needs to be a part of your story. And that depends on who you're talking to. Now, this episode is not about how to find your story, but we will get into that in some other episodes. This is more about once you have that story, you kind of have an idea of what it is. How do you tell it in a way that is concise? Because you're going to lose people. You're going to lose people if you start blabbing on and on about your kids and your dog and every time you moved and the trauma from your childhood. Like, what is the point of this story here? Okay. But before I tell you about my 5-step process for telling a concise story, I want you to first know who you're telling that story to. Once you know who you're talking to, it makes everything else make sense. Okay? Because if you are talking to, for example, maybe you are a health coach and you are talking to moms who want to fit in exercise into their day but feel like they have no time. You're going to use stories that are going to connect to motherhood, to moms with not a lot of time. That's going to be a much different story if you are speaking to entrepreneurs, right? Who maybe, yes, they are mothers, but maybe they are mothers of older kids. And they're not struggling so much with the time piece, but maybe they're just struggling with how to put it into their day, or they maybe don't feel like it's important. And you can talk about why it is. Okay, so knowing your audience and knowing what they are struggling with is going to help you decide which stories to tell. Now, once you know that, this is what we're going to jump into, what we're going to dive into deeply today. And I do want to say on May 26th, we are having a workshop on Zoom where I'm going to help you write your 5-minute story. Once you have it written on paper, all you have to do is memorize 5 minutes. It's not like a full speech. Just memorize your 5-minute story. Doesn't have to be like word for word verbatim, but memorize the points, the pieces that you want to share. And that way, when you're in that networking event or you're in that room and somebody says, tell me what you do, or tell me how you got started, or what's your story, or introduce yourself, you have it in your back pocket, ready to go. If you want to join us live on Zoom to get that personalized touch where you're actually going to be writing it down and I'm going to be walking you through it and checking your work, and you're going to have a chance to practice saying it out loud, then check the show notes below. There is a link to join that. Let me just clarify that. June 26th. Oh my goodness. So June 26th, 2024. Okay, so concise storytelling 101. Let's jump in. Number one is set the before scene. What do I mean by that? Where were you before where you are now? And here's a little hint. Your before is probably where your ideal audience member, your dream audience member is still right now. Because life is a journey. And you, through your expertise, your experience, your training, your life, you have come to a certain place and you know certain things. But your dream audience perhaps isn't there yet. And what you're going to do is paint that clear picture, and you're going to take in all kinds of imagery. I want you to paint that picture of where you were before you had this breakthrough or you found this product that you're selling now, right? So paint the picture in terms of maybe how old you were or what your life looked like. Use color, use sound, use images. Really set the scene of letting them know the facts, right? I was 17 years old. I was living at my parents' house. We didn't have a lot of money. And I was sitting in this one bedroom, this little tiny bedroom with a mattress on the floor. I remember hearing my parents yelling outside almost every night. I remember how it felt. Okay, you're going to use that imagery. I felt so alone every night. That is step one. You set the scene. Try to do it in 1 to 2 sentences. Step two is you start to get more deep into the challenges you faced. I started doing drugs. I was homeless by, I'm really getting dramatic here with the story, but maybe that is as dramatic as your story is. I don't know. I'm not judging in any way. I'm just trying to show you that first we set the scene, and then second, we get into the challenges, the struggles, the pain. This is really where you get to that heart of your listener. And the more you can embody that and kind of relive it and retell it. Now, caveat here, I always say to share from a place of a scar and not an open wound. Some of us have endured some really big T traumas, and I am not one to go out and say, just share it all for the sake of your business, for the sake of changing hearts. But what I will say is that if you can deliver your story without totally crumbling, but still exhibiting and exuding that emotion, then that is perfect. I had a client who, during our story mini mind, every time she went to tell her story, she broke down the first time. The second time, she cried through certain parts. And the third time, she just had some tears, 1 or 2. In acting school, I had a teacher tell me that you want to be like Judy Garland. For some of you younger listeners might not know who she is, but she was a very famous actress back in the day. She's the star of The Wizard of Oz. And Judy Garland was so great because she could do this thing where she would just let one tear fall, just one. And it was just enough to feel that pain and feel how she's fighting it to completely break down. Oh, gets me every time. And that's okay. It's okay to show emotion. People want emotion. We want to feel. We want to feel you. We want to connect to you. Of course, if you are like blubbering and you need a box of Kleenexes to get through it and you're like, you start to ugly cry, then maybe you're not ready to talk about your story. I'm going a little deeper than I expected today, but I think we need to. So first you set the scene, then you go into those challenges. Again, a few sentences here if you want to just make it a quick 5-minute story. Obviously, the more time you have, the more you're going to go deeper in each of these pieces. Number 3 is the climax or the turning point, or sometimes we refer to this as the rock bottom moment. For me, when I tell my conversion story, it's the moment that I was laying in bed. I was going through the list in my head of all of the personal development books that I wanted to read because I had an ongoing list on my phone of all the books to read, and they were all personal or professional development. That's just my jam. It's my genre. And I laid there and thought, okay, what's the next book I'm going to read? And I heard the voice, which I believe was the voice of God, say, the book. Just that's it. 2 words, the book. Oof. And that was the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of opening that book and walking with God. Finally, I was getting it. And after that, I slowly started to leave all of the new age things I was doing and just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. But that was the moment that it all changed. So what was your moment where everything changed? Sometimes there are several moments, but usually there's one that really stands out. And again, you can feel free to include a couple moments. So there was this moment, and then this moment, and then this moment, right? You can include 3 if you have more time. After we have that turning point, we then paint the picture of what now? What does your life look like now? Then I started going to mass. I went to confession. I changed my business. I niched down. I had to let go of some relationships, but I started new ones. I found a community of like-minded people and paint that picture of how that feels now to be walking in a different story. And then finally, the 5th piece is, so what? Again, bringing the lens back to your audience. What does that mean for them? As entrepreneurs, that could mean, this is why my program is so powerful. It could mean, this is why I bought this particular product to help me with my weight loss, and this is what my life looks like now. Okay, so the so what usually turns it back to, what do you want them to do? It's kind of that call to action. Now, if you're giving a introduction, the so what can be, so I decided to start a speaking and storytelling podcast, and that's where I am today. Right? The so what can just be, what are you doing now after this change? How are you taking this story and putting it out into the world and throwing it back at your audience? Okay, so let's review. Concise Storytelling 101. Step 1, set the scene. Step 2, illuminate the rising action, the challenges, the struggles. Step 3 is the climax, the turning point, the rock bottom moment, whatever you want to call it. Step 4 is what now? How does your life look different? And step 5 is so what? What does that mean for your audience? It really is that simple. When it comes to telling your story, especially in an interview or a networking event, you do not want to be taking up people's time. There are a lot of people that have to make an intro. Again, of course, this depends on the setting. You have to be the judge there. Use your intuition on how deep you really want to go. If this is like a healing circle and the point is to really tell your story to help you heal, of course, you're going to give more detail, and it's okay to go off on a tangent. If you're talking to your coach and they want to hear your whole story, it's okay. But for the purposes of business and marketing and networking yourself, we want to be clear, we want to be concise, and we want to be memorable. So remove all the fluff and cut to the chase. What happened? Who were you before? When did things change? What now, and why does it matter? It's really that simple, my friend. All right, if you want to do this together and you want to develop your 5-minute story and practice sharing it in community, come join us June 26th for a live workshop live on Zoom. You will get the replay so that you can go back if you miss, what did she say there? Or what did I do then? Always get the replay to my workshops. All right, friend, enjoy the rest of your day. God bless. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Speaking and Storytelling Podcast. Now, I'd love to hear your voice. What's one thing you learned from today's episode? How did it inspire you? And how will you take action today? You can let me know by leaving a review or visit me on Instagram at emanuela.hall. My friend, remember that you were born for such a time as this. So get out there and fearlessly share your unique God-given voice, because it just might be the thing that changes the world.